Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
When I bought my first house about 5 years ago, I was so excited to finally have a place to call my own. A cozy little spot in a quiet neighborhood. The house wasn't perfect, but it had character, and I was ready to put in the work to make it my dream home. Everything was going great until I noticed some issues with my property. There were these two massive spruce trees right on the property line between my yard and the rental house next door. At first, I didn't think much of them, but as time went on, I realized they were causing some serious problems. The roots were starting to damage my driveway, creating cracks and uneven surfaces. I was worried about tripping hazards and potential damage to my car. Not only that, but the branches were hanging over my roof, dropping needles and debris everywhere. I knew I had to do something about it. I did some research and found out that in our area, there is a law stating that when trees are on a property line, the cost of removal should be split between neighbors. It made sense to me, especially since these trees were causing damage to my property. So I decided to approach my neighbor, the owner of the rental property, about removing the trees. I thought it would be a straightforward conversation. Hey there, I wanted to talk to you about those big spruce trees on our property line. They are causing some damage to my property and I think we should consider removing them. Oh, what kind of damage? Well, the roots are cracking my driveway, and the branches are constantly dropping debris on my roof. It's becoming a real problem. I see. So what are you proposing? I've got some quotes for removal. It's not cheap because of their size and location, but I think it's necessary. According to local laws, we should split the cost since they are on a property line. And how much would that be? Your portion would be about $4,000. The neighbor, laughing, $4,000? I have no money for that. You're on your own. I was stunned. I tried explaining the law and the potential consequences of ignoring the problem, but he wouldn't budge. In the end, I realized it would cost more to take legal action than to just pay for the removal myself. So that's what I did. It was a huge hit to my savings, but I couldn't risk further damage to my property. Fast forward a few months, and things took an interesting turn. The tenant living in the rental property passed away, and the landlord decided to sell the house. During the inspection, they found some hazardous trees on the property that needed to be removed before the sale could go through. The house was uninsurable unless they dealt with this issue. Here's where it gets interesting. Due to the layout of our properties, the only way to access these trees with equipment was either through my yard or by demolishing the garage of their other neighbor. The landlord came knocking on my door, looking desperate. Hi there. I'm in a bit of a bind and was hoping you could help me out. Oh, what's the problem? I'm trying to sell the house, but there are some trees I need to remove. The only way to get the equipment in is through your property. Would you be willing to grant permission? The audacity. After refusing to help with the trees that were damaging my property, he had the nerve to ask for a favor. That's when I saw an opportunity for some sweet, sweet karma. I tell him, I see. And what's in it for me? Well, I'd be very grateful. It would really help me out with the sale. I understand, but I'm afraid I can't just let you use my property for free. My price is $4,000. $4,000? That's ridiculous. You're jeopardizing the sale of my property. I don't care. This is a cost to use my property. Take it or leave it. He took off, clearly furious. But a week later, he was back at my door, check in hand. Here is your $4,000. Now, will you grant me permission to use your property? Of course. I'll draw up the written permission right away. It wasn't just about the money. Although getting back what I was owed felt great, but it was about teaching this guy a lesson as well. Last year, when my little girl turned 5, we decided to have a small gathering in our backyard. Nothing fancy, just a few friends and family members. Little did I know that day would set off a chain of events that would lead to one of the most bizarre experiences of my life. My daughter was beyond excited for her party. We had everything set up perfectly. Balloons, streamers, a bouncy castle, and of course a beautiful cake. Among the guests were our neighbors from down the street, a woman and her 2 kids. I didn't know them well, but I thought it would be nice to include them in our celebration. As the party progressed, everything seemed fine until it was time to blow out the candles. My daughter was beaming with joy as we gathered around the cake, ready to sing happy birthday. And that's when things took a turn for the worse. The neighbor woman suddenly piped up, "Oh, my boys would love to blow out the candles. Can they do it instead?" I was taken aback. "I'm sorry, but it's my daughter's birthday. She should be the one to blow out the candles," I replied politely. She didn't take kindly to that. Her face contorted into a scowl, and she turned to her kids. "Go on, boys. You can blow out all the candles. It's only fair that everyone gets a turn." Before I could stop them, her two little terrors ran up to the table. One of them actually kicked the cake, sending it tumbling to the ground. My daughter burst into tears and the party quickly fell apart after that. Needless to say, we didn't invite them to any more gatherings after that incident. Fast forward to this year, my daughter was turning 6. We decided to have another backyard party, but this time we were more selective with our guest list. The big day arrived and everything was perfect. My daughter was over the moon, surrounded by her friends and our loving family members. Among the guests was my brother-in-law, who happens to work for the FBI. He's always been close to my daughter and she adores her cool uncle. We gathered around the new cake. I made sure it was securely placed on a table this time. And just as we were about to light the candles, I heard a commotion from the other side of our fence. Suddenly, a barrage of water balloons came flying over, drenching everyone and everything in sight. "What's happening? I'm all wet." "Don't worry, sweetie. Let's get you inside." As I ushered my daughter and the other kids towards the house, I saw her. The neighbor woman from last year was standing on the other side of our fence, cackling like a cartoon villain as her kids continued to lob water balloons at us. "How do you like that? That's what you get for not inviting us." "Are you kidding me? You're ruining a child's birthday party. You ruined my boy's fun last year. It's only fair." I was about to lose it when my brother-in-law stepped in. His face was a mask of calm determination as he approached the fence. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to stop this immediately." "Oh yeah? Who's gonna make me?" "I'm a federal agent. What you're doing is considered harassment and trespassing. If you don't stop now, I'll be forced to take action." For a moment the woman looked stunned. Then, as if realizing the gravity of the situation, her face paled. I didn't mean any harm. We were just having some fun." "Ruining a child's birthday party is not fun. Now I suggest you leave before I decide to file an official report." The woman quickly gathered her kids and scurried away, leaving behind a mess of popped balloons and wet grass. We all stood there dripping and bewildered. I say, I am so sorry, everyone. I never expected anything like this to happen. My daughter, bless her heart, looked up at me with her big eyes and said, "It's okay, Mom. Can we still have cake?" We moved the party inside, dried off as best as we could, and continued the celebration. My brother-in-law became the hero of the day, regaling the kids with child-friendly stories from his job while we waited for our clothes to dry. As the party wound down and guests started to leave, my brother-in-law pulled me aside. "I've called the local police. They are on their way to arrest her for harassment, trespassing, and destruction of property." I asked him, "Are you sure that's necessary?" "Absolutely. This behavior can't go unchecked." Sure enough, within minutes we heard police sirens approaching. 2 police officers entered our backyard and my brother-in-law briefed them on the situation. They nodded grimly and headed next door. From our yard, we could hear the commotion. Officer says, "Ma'am, we need you to come with us." "What? You can't arrest me." As they led her to the police car, Karen locked eyes with me. Her face was a mask of pure hatred. "This isn't over. You'll regret this." The officers put her in the back of the patrol car and drove off, leaving her kids in the care of a relative who was quickly called to the scene. In the days that followed, we learned that Karen was charged with multiple offenses. She was released on bail but ordered to stay away from our property. However, this didn't stop her from making her animosity known. We'd often catch her glaring at us from her window. Sometimes we'd find nasty notes in our mailbox. Nothing directly threatening, but enough to let us know she was still angry. A few weeks later, I was out front, watering the plants, when I saw her walking down the sidewalk. She stopped and stared at me, her eyes burning with resentment. "Happy now? You've ruined my life. You did that yourself when you decided to attack a child's birthday party. I'll make you pay for this. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday, stay away from my family, or I'll have you arrested again. She sneered and walked away. Life went on, but there was always this undercurrent of tension in the neighborhood. We installed security cameras and made sure to always be vigilant. My daughter couldn't play in the front yard without supervision anymore. As her next birthday approached, we decided to have the party at a local play center instead of risking another incident at home. It was sad that we had to change our plans because of one person's irrational behavior, but we weren't willing to take any chances. It was disappointing to see someone refuse to learn or grow from their mistakes. We had a birthday to celebrate, and nothing, not even a grudge-holding neighbor, was going to ruin that. Back in the 90s, when I was living my best life, I had a good job as a mechanic, and my true passion was restoring classic cars. I'd spend every spare moment in my garage tinkering with engines and polishing chrome. My pride and joy was my 1969 Firebird. I bought it as a wreck and spent years bringing it back to its former glory. Every nut and bolt, every panel, I knew that car inside and out. It wasn't just a car to me, it was a part of my soul. Then there was my other baby, a 1969 Chevelle. Blue with white racing stripes, she was a real beauty. I'd restored her too, and both cars were show ready. I used to take them to local car meets, and the admiration they got always made me feel 10 feet tall. Life was good. I had my dream job, my dream cars, and I thought I had my dream wife. We'd been married for 5 years, and I believed we were happy. One day I came home early from work and found her in bed with another man. My world shattered, and I couldn't believe it. The woman I loved, the one I thought I grew old with, had betrayed me in the worst way possible. After the initial shock wore off, I knew what I had to do. I filed for divorce. It was painful, but I couldn't stay with someone who broke my trust like that. The process was messy, as these things often are. We argued over everything, the house, the savings, even my tools. But the biggest fight was yet to come. When it came time to sign the divorce agreement, she dropped the bombshell. I want the Camaro. What Camaro? We don't have a Camaro. Don't play dumb with me. That blue car with the white stripes. I want it. I was stunned. She didn't even know what kind of car it was. But then a plan started forming in my mind. If she wanted a Camaro so badly, who was I to deny her? Fine. You can have the Camaro. She looked smug, thinking she'd won. Little did she know what I had in store. The next day I drove my beloved Chevelle to the local grocery store parking lot. I waited for hours watching cars come and go. Finally I spotted what I was looking for. A beat-up old Camaro driven by a high school kid. I waved him over and he pulled up next to me, his eyes wide as he took in my Chevelle. I tell him, "Nice Camaro you've got there. Thanks, but it's nothing compared to your ride. How about we make a trade? My Chevelle for your Camaro. Straight swap." The kid's jaw dropped. He couldn't believe his luck. Are you serious? But your car must be worth way more. I'm dead serious. Do we have a deal? Hell yeah. You've got yourself a deal. We swapped keys right there in the parking lot. The kid drove off in my Chevelle, grinning from ear to ear, while I climbed into the rusty old Camaro. It's barely started, and the engine sounded like it was on its last legs, but it was exactly what I needed. I drove home, signed the divorce papers, and waited for the judge to finalize everything. When the day finally came, I met my ex-wife in a courthouse parking lot. "So, where is my Camaro?" I pointed to the beat-up heap of metal sitting in a corner of the lot. "Right there. Enjoy your Camaro." The look on her face was insane. Her eyes nearly popped out of her head, and her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. "What? No, that's not what I meant. I wanted the blue car with the stripes." "You asked for a Camaro, that's a Camaro." The blue car with stripes was a Chevelle, which I no longer own. Have a nice life. I walked away, leaving her spluttering in disbelief. Sure, I'd lost a valuable car in the process, but keeping it out of her greedy hands was worth every penny. Years have passed since then. I still have my Firebird. Every time I take it for a spin, I'm reminded of how close I came to losing it. As for my ex-wife, last I heard, she was still driving that beat-up Camaro. Sometimes, karma works in mysterious ways. I've been working at Joe's Pizza for about 6 months. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills while I attended community college. My goal was to save up enough to transfer to a 4-year university I study engineering. Every tip, every extra shift, it all went into my savings account. That fateful night started like any other. It was a Friday and we were swamped with orders. The phone was ringing off the hook and the kitchen was a flurry of activity. I had just finished a double delivery when my manager called out to me. "Hey, I've got another order for you. It's for 1234 Oak Street. 3 large pepperonis and a 2-liter cola." Got it. I'm on my way. I loaded up my beat-up Civic and headed out. The address was in a decent neighborhood, nothing too fancy but not sketchy either. And as I pulled up to the house, I noticed a group of young guys hanging out on the front porch. They looked like typical teenagers, probably having a game night or something. I grabbed the pizzas and drinks and walked up to the porch. That's when things took a turn. "Hey guys, I've got your order here. That'll be $42.50. The guy who seemed to be the leader of the group stepped forward. He was tall, with a cocky grin that made me uneasy. "Yeah, about that. We've got a different kind of payment in mind." Before I could react, he pulled out a gun, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. "Hand over your money, your phone, and the pizzas now." Look, I'd heard stories from other drivers about close calls, but I never thought it would happen to me. With shaking hands, I reached for my wallet. "Look guys, you don't want to do this. It's not worth it." Another guy chimed in, laughing. "Oh, it's totally worth it. Free food and cash? Best deal ever." I handed over my wallet and phone, praying that they would just take it and let me go. But the leader wasn't done. "Now empty your pockets, and don't try anything stupid." As I turned out my pockets, I noticed one of the guys looking nervous. "Maybe we should just let him go. We got what we wanted." "Shut up, we're seeing this through." After they took everything, including the pizzas, they shoved me off the porch. "Get out of here and don't look back. If you call the cops, we'll know where to find you." I ran to my car, my hands shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. As soon as I was a few blocks away, I pulled over and called the police. I was terrified, but I knew I had to report what happened. And to my surprise, the cops seemed almost excited when I gave them the address. Officer says, "You're not gonna believe this, kid, but those idiots ordered the pizza under their real name and address. We've got them." It turned out the leader had just turned 18 and this little stunt was going to cost him big time. Armed robbery, possession of an illegal firearm, the charges kept piling up. His friends weren't much better off. As the case unfolded, I learned more about what led to that night. The gun had been a gift from the leader's cousin over the holidays. Apparently he thought it would be cool to show off to his friends. They had been drinking and decided it would be fun to rob someone. I just happened to be the unlucky target. The trial was a nightmare. I had to relive that terrifying night over and over. But seeing those guys face what they've done made it worth it. The leader was tried as an adult and faced over 10 years in prison. His friends got slightly lesser sentences, but they were all going away for a long time. In the end, I got my wallet and phone back, and Joe's Pizza gave me a bonus for how I handled the situation. They also implemented new safety measures for all the drivers. As for me, I decided to switch to a canvas job after that. The tips weren't as good, but at least I didn't have to worry about being held at gunpoint over a pepperoni pizza. And you know what? That engineering degree suddenly seemed a lot more achievable compared to what I've been through. Every time I felt like giving up on my studies, I remembered that night and pushed myself harder. Sometimes I think those guys, I wonder if they realize how badly they messed up their lives over some pizza and pocket change. I hope they learned something in prison. But who knows? As for me, I learned that life can change in an instant, and I'm not taking any of my opportunities for granted.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.